Hold on tight for the next hour. You're entering into a place, a zone called the alternative to the alternative media. It's a place, a special place where even truth seekers fear to tread.
All right, people, let's move like we've got a purpose.
Affirmative.
Okay, glad you're back on the Investigative Journal. The week's almost over on this Friday, August 11th, 2017, day on our calendar. And yesterday I could not get the YouTube up because I played some songs and I got a copyright infringement. And I'm wondering, big deal. How come you can play my shows or anybody's shows anywhere and there's no copyright infringement? Well, they just protect the rich singers? I don't know. It's crazy. The more you hear something, the more you want to hear it. And you can go to their YouTube and get it free anyway. I don't know what they're worried about. But they have these what's called algorithms. It's kind of robot people that just do anything they want, That's the world we live in. Regarding North Korea, the war, Trump doubled down and said he wasn't tough enough when he said all hell will break loose, fire and fury, the likes of which the human race has never seen. What does he want to do? Destroy the whole planet? What about his golf courses? Doesn't he worry about that? Yeah, it's all a bunch of war words. And it's just to keep people in fear. But, I told you something big is going to break out during his presidency because they got to move this little New World Order thing ahead a little bit. They haven't had a big conflict in a while. And usually they get a little restless. They want to see blood, smell blood. So I think something big is on the horizon. Okay, I got a few things I want to do today. One, I want to comment first on a report that came out in L.A. It's poverty-stricken. They're talking about, it's incredible. People are, the foreclosure rates are going up higher than anywhere else in the country, as well as evictions. People are spending 2 to 2.5, 3 times their salary just to live, and they're calling it a crisis. Well, yeah, we've been talking about this for years. And it's no better in other parts of the country. Oh, maybe a little bit here and there. You got to go to some town that's dried up, and you can buy a house for $10,000. Well, what are you going to do there? There's no business. There's no nothing. So maybe we ought to go to those towns and create something. I mean, it's crazy. Well, don't rely on these governments and these people telling you these things. Sure, you're going to get that poverty rate in L.A. You get all these illegal aliens coming over. Then you get, people huddled up in the masses living in a city. What do you expect? Get away from the city. Go somewhere. You're better off living in a tent somewhere in the country, right? Learn to, make your own food. And let's go to first. And the reason I said that was the second half hour, or maybe even the end of the first half hour, I'm going to play something by an old friend who passed away, Robert Clarkson, an attorney who was disbarred. He was a Vietnam vet, war hero, became attorney in South Carolina, and wanted to start fighting for the people about the truth about the tax laws. And I think you'll enjoy it. And the reason I say that is, I'm going to play first what I promised, the indigenous Native American prophecy elder that I wanted to play again so you can get some, I want to play it because it's important. And my YouTube yesterday didn't get out anyway. The show will be on, the show was on First Amendment at 6 last night, but I couldn't get the YouTube. And I can't download these MP3 files yet to my website because of some, you got to pay some exorbitant rate to WordPress. And then if you don't do that, you got to be connected with a FTP program. And then my computer here at home is slow, so I got to do it at another place, so I couldn't get that downloaded. But anyway, such is life in a technical world, right? And then I want to play something that was a little lead into Robert Clarkson, a little clip about 7 minutes long on a guy making statements in the 50s about exactly what's happening today regarding our financial system. So let's play the Native American elder here. I think you'll enjoy it. And he's got a good lesson for you people out there. And a good lesson for me, too. So let's listen to this indigenous Hopi, a native elder, speak.
evolves and comes to a place where it renews again. There is first a purification time, then there is renewal time. We are getting very close to this time now. We were told that we would see America come and go. And in a sense, America is dying from within because they forgot the instructions on how to live on earth. Everything is coming to a time where prophecy and man's inability to live on earth in a spiritual way will come to a crossroad of great problems. It's the Hopi belief, it's our belief that if you're not spiritually connected to the earth and understand the spiritual reality of how to live on earth, it's likely you will not make it. When Columbus came, that began what we term as the First World War. That was the true First World War when Columbus arrived. Because along with him came everybody from Europe. By the end of the Second World War, we were, in America, we were only 800,000. From 60 million to 800,000. So we were almost exterminated here in America. Everything is spiritual. Everything has a spirit. Everything was brought to you by the Creator, the one Creator. Some people call him God. Some people call him Buddha. Some people call him Allah. Some people call him other names. We call him Tonkashila, grandfather. We're here on earth only a few winters. Then we go to the spirit world. The spirit world is more real than most of us believe. The spirit world is everything. Over 95% of our body is water. And in order to stay healthy, you've got to drink good water. When the European first came here, Columbus, we could drink out of any river. If the Europeans had lived the Indian way when they came, we'd still be drinking out of water because water is sacred. The air is sacred. Our DNA is made of the same DNA as the tree. The tree breathes what we exhale. When the tree exhales, we need what the tree exhales. So we have a common destiny with the tree. We are all from the earth. And when the earth, the water, the atmosphere is corrupted, then it will create its own reaction. Mother is reacting. In the Hopi prophecy, they say the storms and floods will become greater. To me, it's not a negative thing to know that there will be great changes. It's not negative. It's evolution. When you look at it as evolution, it's time. Nothing stays the same.
Sedan Darwin skrev sitt berömda verk om arternas uppkomst har vetenskapen varit övertygad om att människan härstammar från aporna.
We always say, that might be your ancestor, but it's not our ancestor.
He's talking, if you see the video, that was made, what was that language? It's not German, it sounds Norwegian or something like that. But anyway, she was saying that the New World Order pushes that we come from monkeys, and that's not what the Hopi elder said.
He's a relative, but not our ancestor. You should learn how to plant something. That's the first connection. You should treat all things as spirit. Realize that we are one family. It's never something like the end. It's like life. There's no end to life.
It's about life. Seventh generation is about vision. It's about leadership looking ahead. It's about responsibility. And seventh generation reminds you that you have responsibility to generations that are coming, and that you indeed are in charge of life as it is at the moment. Every generation has its time, and every generation has its leaders, and every generation has its heroes.
Okay, that was another Hopi elder, and it goes on for another 40 minutes, but I wanted to play the most important part, and now I want to get to this other presentation. Okay, these were amazing predictions made in 1958 by the head of the John Birch Society, and they came true, and it'll blow your mind. Let's listen to them. His name is Robert Welsh, and it was made at a JBS Council dinner in L.A. on March 9th. (1958).
A part of that plan, of course, is to induce the gradual surrender of American sovereignty, piece by piece and step by step, to various international organizations, of which the United Nations is the outstanding but far from the only example. Now, here are the aims for the United States. 1. Greatly expanded government spending for every conceivable means of getting rid of ever larger sums of American money as wastefully as possible. 2. Higher and then much higher taxes. 3. An increasingly unbalanced budget, despite the higher taxes. 4. Wild inflation of our currency. 5. Government controls of prices, wages, and materials, supposedly to combat inflation. 6. Greatly increased socialistic controls over every operation of our economy and every activity of our daily lives. This is to be accompanied, naturally and automatically, by a correspondingly huge increase in the size of our bureaucracy and in both the cost and reach of our domestic government. 7. Far more centralization of power in Washington and the practical elimination of our state lines. There is a many-faceted drive at work to have our state lines eventually mean no more within the nation than our county lines do now within the states. 8. The steady advance of federal aid to and control over our educational system, leading to complete federalization of our public education. 9. A constant hammering into the American consciousness of the horror of modern warfare, the beauties and the absolute necessity of peace. Peace always on communist terms, of course. And 10, the consequent willingness of the American people to allow the steps of appeasement by our government, which amount to a piecemeal surrender of the rest of the free world and of the United States itself. brush the insider's dust out of your eyes, my friends, and the communist soap suds out of your brain, and ask yourselves in all honesty, what on earth is wrong with the United States simply minding its own business? Or with having its foreign policy function primarily for the safety and benefit of the American people? Which is exactly what we had done for the first 140 years of our existence as a nation, to the incredible advantage of ourselves and everybody else. Everybody, that is, except a numerically small clique of power-lusting conspirators who had somehow inflicted themselves on a gullible world. While we turn to a very brief summarization of what we hope the John Birch Society will help and even sometimes lead the American people to accomplish during the next 15 years. 1. Our first and most important specific undertaking should be to restore the complete independence of the United States. This includes our resolution to get us out of the United Nations and get the United Nations out of the United States. Two, we must once again make our money freely redeemable in gold at some realistic price. And we must take all practicable legislative steps to prevent a recurrence of the enormous thievery and other subversive crimes that have been perpetrated on the American people through a contrived inflation by every president from Franklin Roosevelt to Richard Nixon. 3, we should reduce the number of government bureaus, of government civilian employees, and the whole quantity of government by at least 50%. And we should achieve at least this much reduction in proper fashion through gradually convincing a majority of the American people of the wisdom of such a course. 4, we should withdraw all American troops from every spot on earth that is not American soil, except when and where such troops may be required as decided by Congress to protect American lives and property from criminal vandalism. 5, we should get government out of the areas and functions and activities where government does not belong. Again, all steps to this end should be taken gradually, but nevertheless just as rapidly as enough of the American people can be persuaded to support such progress. Any such achievement will require a truly massive educational force, but that's exactly what we hope to build during the next 15 years. We can go ahead for at least 100 numbered items, but the John Birch Society will undoubtedly be working on more than that many specific projects, which will be laid out in its bulletins before another 180 months will have rolled around. And all of them will fit into, all of these projects will fit into the general pattern indicated by the 5 major objectives listed above. So let's really wind up this marathon monologue with one final thought. None of us can guarantee anything about what the future will bring. Your speaker knows what a job we have before us to rid our country of the scourge of communism within the next few years, and then to go ahead on our constructive program so well that 15 years from now we shall already be entering an era of far less government, of a much sounder sense of responsibility, and, with God's help, of a better world. But I sincerely believe that it can be done, and this much I know, that every man and woman in this audience should leave here tonight feeling in his or her own mind and heart that it can and must be done.
All right, so yeah, he's talking there.
Then it surely will be. And so, all of you patriots of good character, good conscience, and noble ideals, whom we can reach with the film's version of this speech in 1,000 other audiences, it is with a great deal of confidence and energizing will to win that we invite you to join us in our epic undertaking. While to all of you great, wonderful friends in this present audience, I certainly extend my very deep thanks indeed for so much patience and attention. Thank you.
Okay, what a good speech, but I guess he was hoping 15 years we'd be turning it around, but it's gotten worse. And but what he said, all of it's coming true. And I'm a bit embarrassed to even be called an American. I mean, to live with, at least back then there were people with some backbone. Now we got just wishy-washy people just scrambling around believing anything they hear. I mean, and it's getting worse and worse. And what this man didn't realize was the Vatican-led New World Order. Or maybe he did and he worked with them. You never know. Just to put out the carrot and the stick. You never know. You never really know. But it didn't work. That whatever he said, it just ended up to be a lot of talk. So look at where we're at today. So if I sat here right now and said, oh, it's going to be a better world if we do this and this and this, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. So then you ask yourself, why do you continue to push these ideas then if we are defeated? Well, defeat is a measure of your own ability to keep fighting. And even if we lose, you win sometimes. And what I'm getting at is this. I don't know if you guys and girls play football now, which to me, I played football. I had a football scholarship to go to Western Illinois University. And I'll tell you what, now I wouldn't play with girls on that team, and I'll tell you why. They're just not as strong. Now they're going to say, oh boy, look at what he's saying, but it's true. They weren't built for the game. And anyway, put men and women in that scrimmage, I'll tell you what. I wouldn't be thinking of hitting her. Okay. Just there's some games made for women, there's some games made for men. Why don't we leave it at that? Now, for example, I used to ride racehorses. And I rode with a lot of women right beside me on the racehorses, and they were probably better riders than me. And that's a tough sport, my friends. Tougher than you think. Probably the best athletes in the world are these jockeys. You would not believe the energy you expend on a race that lasts 2 minutes. And these girls are tough. But, they're made that way. They're made tough, but they're not made to be wrestling around with 250-pound moron men. Anyway, back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately. and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn, the Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
The following program is labeled dangerous and off limits by the supreme Jesuit command. But stand tall, people. Listen up, and you may just learn something.
Oh, dear Lord Jesus, this ain't happening, man. This can't be happening, man. This isn't happening.
Okay, back for the second half hour of the Investigative Journal on this August 11th, this beautiful Friday. Friday, yes, I love Fridays, don't you? Yeah, you got the whole weekend ahead to plan for all of your shenanigans. And I'm getting ready this weekend. I think I'm going to the beach this weekend, not to lay out in the sun. I can't stand laying out in the sun. I don't know what the attraction is. I never did. Even when I was a kid, we went to Fort Lauderdale, you know, one of those spring beer bashes, you know, from Illinois. And I didn't even see the ocean until I was, in college, I don't think. Saw Lake Michigan. Why do you need the ocean? So anyway, never was attracted to just standing or laying in the sun like that. You know, if I'm going to the beach, I want to do something, you know, walk around, look for shells, go scuba diving, do something active. That's the way I looked at it. But anyway, now that you get to a ripe old age, you just go there and you lay in the sun. I ain't doing it. I'm just going to go tomorrow, walk, and there's a couple horses that they bring on the beach, and so I'm going to pay the guy and go take a ride tomorrow, I think. Okay. They got a Western saddle, so I think I can still stay on. But what I was getting, I got a little, on a tangent, but really, that's okay. But I wanted to get back to the point, and that was the financial crisis. I mean, this is I'm really quite embarrassed to be an American now. I mean, who do you got to be proud of? Sean Penn or Johnny Depp? I mean, you have no political leaders you can hold you can look up to. It's ridiculous. I mean, everybody in this country needs to just relax for a minute and say, where are we as a nation? It's ridiculous. They're ripping it apart. And I get these emails, and we're going to lead into Robert Clarkson, who's going to set your record straight on, the income tax and how it is voluntary. You don't have to pay it, but I could say it till the cows come home, and people won't believe it. But I'm going to let Robert Clarkson say it. And Robert, a good friend of mine, another one who passed away, he was on my show many, many times and taught me a lot. And you'll listen to that. I have it all potted up here, but anyway, let me just lead into it with several emails I get. I get one email from a listener who says, "Tell me how I can get rid of my birth certificate and change my name or all this stuff." And all I'm going to say is this: go to an interview I did years ago, okay, and it's the only guy, I can't think of his last name now because it's been so long. His name is Terry. I'm going to make it hard for you. That's the only way you can ever divest yourself, and it's not an easy way. You can't just go, I think I'll get rid of one thing, but yet I get another thing from the government. It's got to be a complete divestiture, and that's not an easy proposition. And I went into it in depth years ago. And I said to people, it's difficult. I'd prefer just living out of the country and then just using a different currency and stuff like that. Crazy. But anyway, Terry, and I'll get his last name, but you can go to you can Google Terry interview with Greg regarding how to become a independent citizen of your own state, not of the United States. Okay. Terry Lee, that's it. Okay. Now, next email I get is, I'm really appalled that they can track me down if I'm on the voter registration list. Well, of course. What do you think you're going to do when you give them your name, your address, and everything about you? But I say to that person, what's the sense of even voting? That's your first mistake, because their vote doesn't mean anything, so don't give them any information. Vote at home, put an X with the person you like and say, hey, that's the one I would have voted for. But even if you do, it's not going to make any difference. So I wanted to get a couple of those straightened out. So anyway, let's go to Terry Lee. And he'll straighten you out about the income tax.
Congressman Ron Paul has called GOA.
Oh, I've got it not potted up correctly, and I will do that. But anyway, let me just say this before we get to that. My grandfather came over here. He didn't pay income tax. The income tax is relatively new. And just to make it long story short, the Supreme Court would have come down against it. There's no way you can constitutionally prove this tax, so the government, with their sneaky little lawyer tricks, decided to make it voluntary, so they kind of skirted that, and that's exactly what they do, and it's still the same today. But anyway, we'll get to this, we'll get to Robert Clarkson in a second.
Welcome to the Thursday, March 1st, 2007 edition of the Investigative Journal. And today we're going to really talk about one way in the first hour how you can fight back against the New World Order and the corrupt corporate system that you've become a slave to. We're going to have Robert Clarkson on today. He's a lawyer. He's not practicing, but he's been around for 30 years fighting the IRS, and he gives you the full scoop on exactly how to fight these people and not give them your hard-earned money, because it's a voluntary income tax that we're talking about. And that's what we're going to discuss in the first hour. I did want to point out also there's another way to fight the New World Order, and that is to become a sovereign citizen. And on my website at www.arcticbeacon.com, you can get a CD that I have there. It's in a yellow banner in about the middle of the page, and it says, Become a Free Man, Not a Slave, and it's Terry Lee's CD on how to fight the New World Order by becoming a sovereign citizen. And that little CD that I'll send you If you click on that link, it'll show you how to do that. We'll teach you exactly the beginning steps of how to break the corporate chains that have been tied around your entire being by the corporate system that we are under. You don't hear many of these things because they want you to continue paying, and paying not only with your money but with your spirit and soul as the New World Order moves on without any kind of stoppage in the war in Iraq. Millions of people are dying, and it's not going to get any better if we don't begin to realize how they're doing it. Yesterday, I brought on Barry Chamish. You can get that archive off of my website if you go there until RBN gets the archives back to date. I want to make this program note that you can get the archives on RBN at rbnlive.com all the way up until January, about 25th or 26th of this year. Between that time and now, they're working feverishly to get the archives back up. So in the interim, there's a way to get them. If you go to my website, and you'll see a little box that says Important Notice, click the audio archives, and you can get the archives between the dates of January 25th, at least most of them, up until now. So that's a big help. And that's on a website where someone who's helping RBN to make sure that people can listen to these shows. So in the right after this short message, I've got about a minute left here. I'm going to bring on Robert Clarkson. He's in transit, so we're going to be talking to him on his cell phone in his car. He's going to get a journal, and I'm going to get right to my guest, Robert Clarkson. He's really an expert in the area of the tax laws, and has helped many, many people, thousands of people over the years, over the 30 years he's been doing this. He's a former attorney from South Carolina, always on the go. He's on the go right now to another seminar to help people understand their rights, and we're going to get right to Robert. Robert, where are you headed now?
Greg, I'm going down to Columbia, South Carolina, to show a lot of people how they can quit paying taxes they don't owe. In our association, we recommend very strongly that people obey the law and pay the taxes they owe. But I'm just going to be talking about taxes they don't owe. Our motto is pay the taxes you owe, don't pay the taxes you don't owe, and learn the difference. Greg, paying the taxes you owe is bad enough. Paying the ones you don't owe is tragic.
Right, and tell us which ones you don't have to pay and why they're voluntary. Go ahead.
Well, Social Security is hopeless and completely backward. Look at the numbers, look at statistics. Social Security cannot pay off. It's mathematically impossible. So they're not going to pay off. Why should people contribute? Self-employed people with a few simple letters can save themselves from Social Security. They can quit paying the Social Security tax legally. They can no longer pay. They stick their money in the pocket. Greg, if you take that 15% that they're stealing from you out of your paycheck each week, you take that money and put it in an investment program, insurance program, stock program, the average person at age 30 would be a multimillionaire at age 65. Whereas if they take that 15% and send it to the bankrupt Social Security system, they're going to get back zilch, zero, nada, nothing. And likewise, Greg, a lot of states have a state income tax. The state income tax is based on the federal, it's a percentage of the federal. State law in every case says that their state income tax is the same as the federal. Whatever applies federally applies state. Therefore, if you are not a tax person or tax victim federally, you're automatically not a tax victim for the state income tax if your state is cursed with such a mechanism. Now, the biggie, the federal income tax. The IRS is not truthful, but every now and then they tell the truth. The IRS has been very consistent. The federal income tax is voluntary. You don't have to pay it. If you're a person that does not owe the income tax, you don't have to pay it. It's legal, it's safe. And we recommend that few people who do qualify for the federal income tax should run down there and pay it. But a vast, vast majority of working people who are paying a tax they don't owe can very simple and easy leave the tax system, learn what their rights are, and spend their money on themselves and their families. Greg, the reason we go to work every day is to support our families. The Bible says you have a duty to support your wife and children. Where in the Bible does it say we have to support these millionaire farmers, but to pay them not to work? And where do we have to give all this money to these 10 on dictators on the other side of the earth? Greg, our money, we work for it. It belongs to us, and we're supposed to spend it to support
You know, your message is so clear. I hear a lot of other people out there talking, but they never really get down to the nitty-gritty, and that is that basically the safest method is not to file in the beginning. And when I say that to people that don't understand it, they immediately roll their eyeballs and go, if I don't file, the IRS is going to get me. Please tell them the real truth about the laws so that people can know their rights and save this money for their families and not give it, like you said, to these tin-horn dictators in our country and in the world. Go ahead.
Well, the IRS bunch of thieves. They're mostly liars, but every now and then they tell the truth. We don't have to file, we don't have to pay, but people don't know what their rights are. So we've got a special website. Actually, some of my friends set it up, but immense amount of information that people can use to quit paying taxes they don't owe. The website is voluntarytax.info. So somebody could go on this voluntarytax.info website and get immense amount of information where they can very easily and simply quit paying the taxes they don't owe in the first place. Now, as I said earlier, you owe it, run down there, pay it. We're loyal, honest, devoted Americans. This is the best country on earth, and we want to pay the taxes we owe. We believe in strict adherence to the law. Greg, the reason some of our people have problems is they actually believe, this is proof, Greg, that the people in power should obey the law too. We actually believe that U.S. Constitution is the highest law of the land, and people in power should obey it exactly like it's written.
Good point. And the IRS taxes are interesting because tell us, go through the method in this first segment here, the method of not filing and what a person can expect. Because we need to get this method down.
The Constitution, the blessed U.S. Constitution, given to us our founding fathers, it sets up the greatest country on the government of the greatest country on earth, states in two places absolute prohibitions against capitation tax, head taxes, and income tax. The income tax is illegal under two sections of the Constitution. This is explained in our new book, Are You Required? Wages Not Income. But this is a complete synopsis of the wages not income, the case law, congressional record, everything that shows that you're not a taxpayer if you're a wage earner or salary or self-employed in an honest living. Now, if you rob banks and deal drugs, well, you have to pay income tax. But if you're an honest person making an honest living, the Constitution says you don't have to pay income tax. The way the IRS got around the Constitution was right clever, was it made the income tax voluntary. So you can quit paying federal income tax, state income tax, and then bankrupt Social Security tax by one of several methods. The most convenient way for most people is our untaxed packet. This makes it easy for you to quit paying taxes. It's so simple and easy this way. You send out a series of notices. You send notices to the top people in government, and of course we know the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, and World Bank run our country. You put these people on notice that you are not a taxpayer, that you're not in the system. And then you give them a reasonable amount of time, generally 30 days, to notify you in writing that you are a taxpayer. And then you close your notice to them. If they don't notify you in a reasonable period of time that you're a taxpayer, then that means they agree with you. Silence condemns, silence connotes consent. They have a duty to respond. If they don't respond, then a estoppel steps in. They cannot come back and change. So we notify them with a series of notices, sometimes called letters, to the top people of the IRS, the people in charge, that explains to them our position and asks them to correct any wrongdoing, mistake on our part. And if they don't correct it within a reasonable amount of time, they are stopped from later doing this. This works. It works.
Okay, let's say they do notify you. Robert, let's say they do notify you within those 30 days. What's your next step?
Well, if they notify that you're a taxpayer, then you have to litigate it and get it determined by the courts. We'll help you with that. Because our position is strict adherence to the law. If they notify you, then we have to go to court and get the courts to declare you a non-taxpayer. That's not a problem. That can be done easy.
So that really, the courts have no choice once you get in there and you start fighting them if you take this avenue of notifying them.
Yeah. Now, the IRS has a sneaky trick to keep us out of the courts and keep us away from the courts. They made the income tax voluntary. So if you go to court, the judge will point out that we've had this happen in a number of cases. It's a voluntary tax. You don't have to file, you don't have to pay. So that's where they keep us out of the courts. And as long as they keep us voluntary, keep the income tax voluntary, they got us, they beat us, there's very little we can do.
Right. Now, let's say you don't take the avenue of notice and you just don't file.
That's what a lot of people do, but the notice locks in the other side. They cannot, under any circumstances, change and make your tax plan. So the notice is your fail-safe provision to prevent any problems. We've used this packet, I think Nelson says 15 or 20 years, and other people used it 20 years before that. It's never failed. Now, we have a very good videotape, only $100, that explains in detail how this packet works and how people can use it to quit paying taxes.
And where can people get this information? The
They can order it from me. The best way to do everything with me is go to my website. My website has everything. They can go to the voluntarytax.info website, which has got the untaxed material. Or to get in touch with me personally, like if the IRS is harassing them, my website's patriotnetwork.info. Voluntarytax.info is for the people to untax. And if you're harassed by the IRS, my personal website is patriotnetwork.info. But we have a vast amount of information on there free that people can use to exercise their rights, to learn what the Constitution says and learn what the government should and should not do. Well, you're not going to believe this, but our federal government is in violation of the law.
Yeah, and I do believe it because, you know what, they will do anything to mislead the American people. I mean, even to the point where you get into the whole idea of being a sovereign citizen, a state citizen instead of a corporate citizen. I'm sure you're aware of this route. I mean, they've got you locked up from the time you're born. You become this corporate slave to them. And the reason they don't bother people like you, Robert, is what? They just want to keep the lid on it for as few people as possible to know, so they can just...
If they try to tax any of our people, we'll take them to court, and then the Supreme Court will rule nobody has to pay it. But the IRS has found out it's cheaper to let the few malcontents not pay the taxes and leave them alone, rather than taking a chance the whole scam will come falling apart. They know that sooner or later the court's going to declare the whole scam, the whole scheme illegal, unconstitutional, and throw it out. So they want to keep it going as long as they can, and the way they do it is just leave a few people alone. I said earlier that our government's all a bunch of liars.
Okay, I only got about 4 minutes, and I got a lot more with Robert Clarkson in that hour, so we'll do that on Monday, perhaps, if we can remember what we did on Friday. But let me just give you a recap since I got about 4 minutes. The fact, if you really, and I did some research on this myself, I did go to law school, so I have half a brain left. And the Supreme Court decisions are, what happened when they finally got to the Supreme Court, the government realized they were going to lose. And this was back when even Republican congressmen and senators were vehemently against the IRS taxes. When you go back to that time in history, before the 30s and the early 40s, there was no income tax in this country. From the beginning of our beginnings of America, people went out in the fields, they worked, it's their money. Government, this is that slow Jesuit Vatican takeover, Rome takeover, taxing and taxing and taxing. And so they devised this IRS income tax, and as you grow up, you hear, well, let me get back to the court case. So these lawyers, these government lawyers, these sneaky lawyers, they realized they could not win this case. So they kind of pulled their argument back and said, okay, that's fine. We'll take another direction. And another direction was we'll make it voluntary. And if you look on the early tax forms, you will see that was very bold print at the top. This tax is voluntary. But as the years went on, they decided to do a propaganda campaign and make you believe that the only thing that's secure in life that you know will happen is that you're going to die and you're going to have to pay taxes. Then they create the IRS Roman tax collectors like they used to go around in the old days as these henchmen running around trying to harass people, waitresses, you didn't report all your tips. But yet they let illegal drug dealers in, and they're in the drug business themselves, the government, to make millions, and they don't pay a cent on that, do they? So we're being duped again. So the real simple thing is, this is a legal fact. It's voluntary still to this day. Now, Robert gets into a lot of different things, but they do a study every 5 years or so on non-filers. Now, Robert was talking about filing this notice. Now, what if you don't want to do that? Many people say, well, why should I put my neck on the line here? Well, you're not. You're just saying I'm not a taxpayer. If they say you are, let them respond. It's really no big deal. But a lot of people won't do that. Now, if you don't file, there's about there's I think it was like 40, 50, 60 million filers. I'll have to go back to this, the non-filers. And the percentage of who they go after, about 0.1%. And the reason is they don't want to let the cat out of the bag. And they'll go after a guy that's a rap artist that screwed up, and then they'll do a settlement, and it'll be like, oh, see, we got the non-filer. And then they collect $1 million or $2 million from the rich guy. But you're not going to see him do this with 50 million people. So I always said, the safest thing to do is not file. So what happens if you work for a corporation? They're tax collectors. They take it out even before. We'll get to that on Monday. Have a good weekend. See you later on the Investigative Journal.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.